My wife cheated on me with my twin brother. I caught them laughing in our kitchen, barefoot and breathless, slicing into a birthday cake they baked together on my birthday. They didn't see me at first. I stood in the hallway, shoes still on, gripping the doorknob like it might keep me from collapsing. She wore my flannel. He wore my smile. I watched her smear icing on his cheek and him lick it off like they'd rehearsed the scene a dozen times. And maybe they had. Maybe I was just the backdrop now, the dead air between their lines. That was the day it came crashing down. But it started long before the cake. The first crack showed 3 months earlier, on a Tuesday that was otherwise forgettable. I came home late from work. Client dinner ran long. And when I walked through the front door, the living room was dark, but I heard music. Not her usual moody jazz or rainy day piano. This was old stuff. Our stuff. A playlist we made on our honeymoon. And she was dancing. Not a full dance, just swaying. Alone. Barefoot. Her arms wrapped around herself like she was being held. Her eyes were closed. I stood there, just watching her for a minute. Then I said her name. She startled. Spun too quickly. Her smile froze in transition, like she hadn't decided who she was yet. Oh, you're home early. It was 10:30. You okay? Yeah. Just reminiscing. About. She shrugged. Us. The old days. I don't know. I kissed her cheek. She didn't lean into it. That was the first time I wondered if she was drifting. The second time was at dinner the next week. She made pasta. Not unusual. But she made his kind. Rigatoni, red pepper, pancetta. My brother's favorite. She knows I hate pancetta. Says it smells like gym socks. I asked why. She didn't look up from her plate. I was craving it. You've never craved it in your life. I can start, can't I? That answer stuck with me for days. Then came the change in the mornings. She used to linger. Sit next to me at the table, coffee in hand, robe half open, bare feet on my thighs. We'd read headlines, mock each other's horoscopes, argue about how much butter was too much butter on toast. Now she was up before me, dressed, hair done, full face of makeup. Every day, like she had somewhere to be, but she didn't. She freelanced from home. Her only standing client was a food blogger she ghostwrote for, and she hadn't taken a new pitch in months. You look nice, I said one morning, trying to sound casual. She smiled over her coffee. Trying something new. What's the occasion? Maybe I just want to look good again. You always look good. She didn't answer. The silences got longer after that. Conversations felt pre-taped, like she was reading from a script she hadn't rehearsed. I'd ask her questions about her day, and she'd reply in half sentences. Her phone never left her side. She took it into the bathroom, slept with it under her pillow, turned the screen brightness so low I couldn't see a thing even if I glanced. One night, I saw her typing and smiling. I asked what was funny. She said, meme. But when I reached for the phone, she locked it instantly. I didn't ask again. I didn't want to hear the lie. Then came the text from Alex. He started messaging me more often. At first it was random stuff, funny videos, sports talk, old pictures from our childhood. But then he started asking about her, how she was doing, what she was up to, if she was still painting, if she still baked those weird cranberry almond muffins. They'd never been close. She always said he made her uncomfortable, said he had this way of looking at people like he could read their secrets. I asked if something had changed between them. He laughed it off. Just being friendly, man. She's your wife. Exactly. She's my wife. The next sign came subtle. Too subtle. A shirt. Alex wore this ugly gray Henley, frayed at the cuffs, neck sagging a bit. He wore it constantly, said it was his thinking shirt. We used to make fun of him for it. Said it looked like a cursed Civil War relic. One morning, I saw it in our laundry basket. Same weird fray. Same loose thread on the collar. I held it up, stared at it like it might speak. She walked in, saw me holding it. That's mine, she said too fast. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. She walked out. That night, she cried during a movie. Not a sad movie. A dumb action flick. She cried during a scene where the main character hugged his brother. I reached for her hand. She pulled away. A few days later, I found her staring at an old photo of Alex and me. We were 10. Identical haircuts, matching bruises from some backyard stunt. I stood behind her, quiet. She didn't flinch when I said her name. Just turned the photo down and said, "You used to smile like that." I didn't sleep that night. She started baking again. Said it helped her decompress. Said she was trying to reconnect with joy. But I watched her pour every ounce of joy into the batter, whisking like it was therapy, licking the spoon like it was ritual. I'd find half-eaten cakes on the counter the next day, crumbs in the shape of grief. One morning, I caught her on a video call. She was laughing in a voice I hadn't heard in months, light, effortless. She wore her hair up the way he always said he liked it. She had music playing in the background. One of his stupid playlists, the kind of stuff only he listened to. Deep cuts from 90s bands no one remembers. She slammed the laptop shut when she saw me. "Who was that?" I asked. She blinked. Swallowed. "Just a client." I nodded. "Which one?" She paused. "Just a beat too long. New one. You wouldn't know him." I didn't know him. Huh? But I did. I was starting to. Piece by piece. Look by look. Touch by absence. I didn't know how deep it went. Not yet. But I was starting to smell the smoke. And the fire was in my blood. She started calling me by my full name. Not often. Just when she was tired, or irritated, or distracted. But I noticed. Everyone calls me Cam. Always have. Even my mom. But now, out of nowhere, "Cameron, did you take the trash out?" Or "Cameron, can you shut the window?" Like she was resetting her brain every time she looked at me. Like she had to remind herself who I was. And the way she said it, it was rehearsed. Like someone else had said it first, and she was repeating it. The real shift came 2 weeks after the birthday cake. Alex showed up unannounced. It was Sunday. I'd just finished mowing the lawn. He pulled into the driveway in his beat-up Tacoma, windows down, sunglasses on, blasting old country. My wife came out to greet him before I could even stand up. She wiped her hands on her apron. Yes, she'd started wearing a goddamn apron, and smiled like she was opening the door to an old flame. They hugged. Full body. Hands on back. No awkward sibling-in-law distance. She lingered in his arms for a beat too long, then laughed into his shoulder. I stood at the top of the steps. Alex saw me. Raised his hand like we hadn't just spoken 3 days earlier. "Cam," he said, too loud, too bright. "You look like hell, man." He didn't ask to come inside. Just followed her in like he lived there. Like he used to live there. I followed, slowly, watching the way her body angled toward him, not me. The way her shoulders dropped when he spoke. The way she played with her hair. They sat on the couch, side by side. I stayed standing. "You didn't say you were coming," I said. "Spur of the moment," he said. "Been meaning to swing by." "For what?" He hesitated, then smiled. "Just missed you." She laughed. I looked at her. She said, "It's been forever." "It's been 9 days," I said. They both blinked. Alex cleared his throat. "Guess it just felt longer." I wanted to punch him. Right there. In the middle of our living room, while he sat on my couch, beside my wife, drinking my bourbon like nothing was wrong. But I didn't. I poured myself a glass and watched him drink. Later, after he left, I found his jacket on the back of the chair. She picked it up too fast. Said she'd drop it off. I said I'd handle it. She insisted. We stared at each other for a long second. Then she backed down. I took it to the garage and searched the pockets. Inside was a receipt. 2 grilled cheese sandwiches. 2 Cokes. 1 slice of pecan pie. Dated 2 days ago. From a diner on the other side of town. I sat in my car and stared at it for 20 minutes. Then I drove there. The waitress remembered them. "Oh yeah," she said. "Cute couple." Sat in the corner booth. She had paint on her jeans. My wife hadn't painted in months. She gave it up last fall. I went home and checked the garage. Her easel was gone. So were her brushes. When I asked her, she said she was trying again. I nodded. "Where do you paint?" She blinked. "Sometimes here. Sometimes outside." "Where outside?" "Just places." "What places?" She snapped. "Why does it matter?" It mattered because Alex's apartment had a rooftop deck with a full view of the skyline. And the last time I was there was an old canvas propped in the corner. I asked about it. He said it was nothing. Said he was storing it for a friend. A friend. A friend who wore my wife's perfume. The walls were closing in. And she knew it. One morning, I came downstairs and found her sitting at the table with her laptop open, crying. Real crying. Quiet. Barefaced. Hair wild. No coffee. Just staring at the screen. When she noticed me, she wiped her face, shut the laptop. "Everything okay?" She nodded too fast. "Yeah. Just watching something stupid." "What was it?" She didn't answer. I reached for the laptop. She pulled it away. "It was just a video," she said. "Let it go." "I'm your husband," I said. Her jaw clenched. "Are you?" That was the first time she said it out loud. She apologized a minute later. Said she didn't mean it. Said she was tired. Said she was just feeling off. But it was there. The crack. The hairline fracture between who we were and what we'd become. I waited until she went to bed. Then I turned the laptop back on. It was still open to a web browser. Search history showed. How to tell your husband you're in love with someone else. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, she made me eggs. Sunny side up. My favorite. She hadn't cooked for me in weeks. Thought you could use a good start, she said. I stared at the yolks like they were landmines. She smiled like she hadn't typed those words 12 hours earlier. I smiled back. But inside, something ruptured. That's when I started planning. Because the one thing they never saw coming, the one thing neither of them counted on, was that I'd see it all. That I'd catalog every lie, every sideways glance, every flinch and whisper and laugh. And I'd use it. Every bit of it. Because I wasn't going to explode. No, I was going to collapse in silence. Then bury them both in the rubble. She kissed me that morning. Not like a wife. Not like a friend. She kissed me like a stranger performing a ritual she didn't believe in anymore. Lips dry, eyes open, hands nowhere near me. Then she walked out the door with my brother's coffee order in her hand. He drinks it black with honey. I like mine with milk. We've been that way since high school. I stood in the kitchen, staring at the to-go cup she left behind by mistake. His name scribbled across the side. Alex. Big, messy, confident handwriting. Hers. She'd stopped writing my name on anything months ago. That day gutted me. Not because it was different, but because it wasn't. Every morning had become a routine performance of affection, like we were reenacting a marriage that no longer existed. I'd cook, she'd smile. I'd talk, she'd nod. But the air between us felt staged. Scripted. Dead. She called me Cam, again that morning. Too bright. Too cheerful. She only used my nickname now when she needed me to stay docile. When she wanted something. When she didn't want me asking questions. And I had plenty of questions. Like why she suddenly had meetings across town 3 nights a week. Or why she left the house in oversized sweatshirts that weren't hers. Or why she'd come back wearing makeup at 10 p.m. when she claimed she'd been running invoices for a vegan cupcake shop. Or why, last weekend, she came home drunk and happy and humming a song from a band only Alex listened to. She sang the words like they were engraved in her bones. When I asked where she'd heard it, she blinked like she didn't understand the question. I didn't ask again. I already knew. She was building a private world, and I wasn't invited. I was just the foundation she'd built it on. But I didn't have proof. Not yet. So I played dumb. And she played innocent. It became a game. She'd sit beside me on the couch and smile while texting him. I could see it in her posture, shoulders low, half a smirk, fingers dancing across the screen like they belonged to someone else. I once caught a glimpse of a message. Can't wait to see you again. Last time wasn't enough. She saw me looking. Her smile didn't change. Spam, she said. From who? Work thing. Spam's getting personal these days. She just sipped her wine. I stopped sleeping beside her soon after. I told her it was back pain. She didn't protest. Just said, get some rest, Cam, and rolled over. We didn't touch for 3 weeks. I started watching the guest room. It became her new home base. She said she needed the space to paint, to meditate, to breathe. I never heard any painting. What I did hear was the low thrum of her voice after midnight. Quiet calls, hushed laughter, and once, the unmistakable hum of my brother's voice replying. I stood outside the door for 15 minutes that night, forehead against the wall, fists clenched. He was speaking softly, words I couldn't make out. But I knew that tone. It was the same one he used on girls in college when he pretended he didn't care about anything. She whispered back like it was sacred. I went back to bed and stared at the ceiling until sunrise. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I needed more. So I started laying traps. Little things. I moved her charger. Watched her panic. I changed the Wi-Fi password. Watched her storm into the room, red-faced, accusing me of breaking her connection to work. I installed a second dash cam in her car. One she wouldn't see. And then I waited. She grew more careless. Started dressing better when I wasn't around. Brushed her teeth before leaving, but not before bed. Bought a second set of perfume I'd never smelled on her skin. Once, I asked where she was going. She said yoga. Then I watched her pull out of the driveway in jeans. She came home hours later smelling like pine wood and bourbon. I told her she looked relaxed. She smiled. Yoga helps. The next morning, I checked the dash cam. She didn't go to yoga. She drove across town. Parked 3 blocks from Alex's place. Walked the rest of the way, hoodie pulled low, sunglasses on. She looked back once before disappearing behind the gate. She stayed there for 3 hours. When she came out, her hair was down and her sleeves were rolled. She looked freshly showered and proud. I didn't sleep that night either. The next day, I called Alex. He didn't answer. I texted him, "Let's grab lunch this week. Just us." He replied, "Crazy week. Next time." No smiley face. No inside joke. No, my guy. He was slipping. They both were. That night, she came home humming again. Same song. I met her in the kitchen. "You've been happy lately." She didn't answer right away. "Have I?" I nodded. "You have. Is it me?" She paused, blinked, and smiled. "Of course." Then she walked past me. I stood there alone, staring at the cold spot where she used to touch my back as she passed. The touch that used to mean everything. Now it meant nothing. Now it meant don't look too close. I didn't need her to lie anymore. I just needed her to keep talking. Because the more she talked, the more she gave me. And I was getting ready. Not for the confrontation. For the funeral. Because when I tore this thing apart, I wasn't just going to show the betrayal, I was going to bury them both under it. She started painting again. That wouldn't have meant much if she hadn't sworn off it years ago. Said it reminded her too much of the version of herself she didn't like, the girl who waited around for inspiration like it was some kind of god. That's how she put it after her last gallery show flopped. She boxed up her oils, sold her easel, and told me she was done chasing dreams. "We're grown-ups now, Cam," she said. "We make money, not art." But now, suddenly, she was painting again. Not in the daylight. Not in the open. No turpentine. No canvas smell wafting through the house. It was secretive. Contained. I only noticed because she kept leaving tiny streaks of color on things. A thumb smudge of cobalt blue on a doorframe. A spot of raw umber on the laundry basket. Once, a streak of cadmium red on her cheek when she came out of the guest room and claimed she'd been organizing taxes. I asked her where the canvases were. She blinked, said she wasn't ready to show anything. I said, "Not even to me?" She shrugged. "They're not about you." That was new. Once, everything she made was about us. Alex used to say her art was too soft. Said it looked like therapy with a paintbrush. He made jokes at her first show, called it mood ring chic. She didn't laugh. He said he was kidding. But I never forgot. Now she was painting again, and she didn't want me to see. So I started checking the trash. At night, after she went to bed, I dug through the bag with gloves on like some pathetic amateur spy. Found nothing for days. Then one night I found a crumpled towel stained with raw sienna and charcoal gray colors she hated. "Too bleak," she used to say. "Like rot in a cave." Then I found the receipt. Art supply store. New brushes. New oils. Canvas rolls. All in one purchase. 3 weeks ago. She hadn't said a word. So I started watching the guest room door. Every night, after 10, she'd go in there and lock it. Not a quiet lock, either. A loud click, like punctuation. Like a wall. I started keeping a notebook. Times, sounds, phrases she used. It felt crazy, but I needed patterns. I needed structure, or I'd dissolve. And in that structure, things began to surface. She was laughing more, but only when I wasn't in the room. I'd hear it muffled through the wall. Not sitcom laughter. Real laughter. The kind that tilts your head back. The kind that used to belong to me. She was also writing again. I saw it in the way she kept scraps of paper folded into her sketchbooks. The way she carried a pen behind her ear. She said it was to take notes for work. But I knew her tells. She was creating something. I found a draft once. Left open on her laptop, probably by mistake. It was titled "Sunlight Doesn't Know Who It Touches." It was fiction. About a woman who falls in love with a man who reminds her of her husband, but isn't. The man is described as having a similar voice, similar build, similar eyes. But more confident. More sure of his shadow. That's the line that stuck. I read it twice before she walked in and caught me. She didn't yell. She just closed the screen slowly and said, "It's not about you." I said, "I didn't say it was." She said, "But you thought it was." That's the problem. That night, I looked at myself in the mirror and tried to see what she saw. Nothing came. 2 days later, I caught her at the back fence, talking to someone through the slats. She said it was the neighbor. "We don't have neighbors on that side. Just an empty lot." When I asked again, she said, "You don't need to interrogate every moment." "Who was it?" I said. She stared at me for a long time. Then, "It's none of your business." That was the moment I knew she didn't care if I knew anymore. She was done hiding, just not done denying. Then Alex started showing up again. randomly. Once to return a book, once to borrow a drill, once just to say hey. He always smelled freshly showered, like he got clean just for us. He never stayed long. 20 minutes here, an hour there. But always when I was distracted. Working in the garage, fixing the gutters, walking the dog. She never told me he came. I only knew because I installed a small camera under the porch light. I watched the footage one night in bed, volume off. Just them, laughing on the steps. She touched his arm. He leaned in close to say something in her ear. She laughed, hard, then caught herself. Looked around, then kissed him on the cheek. I didn't flinch. Because it didn't matter if it was a kiss or a glance or a whisper. What mattered was that she'd forgotten I was watching. They both had. That's when I realized this wasn't just betrayal. This was a performance. And I was the only one who knew the script. I left the front door unlocked. It was the only thing I did that day that felt honest. They thought I was working late client dinner downtown. They always banked on routine. My schedule, my temperament, my silence. The fool who always came home at 8:30, hung his keys on the hook, kissed his wife on the cheek, and turned a blind eye to the faint scent of cologne on her skin that didn't belong to him. But I was already home. Car parked 2 blocks over. I came in through the back. Quiet. Soft-soled boots, gloves on, lights off. I waited in the guest room closet. For 5 hours. The air went stale. I kept my breath shallow. My legs went numb. I listened to the house settle into its skin, refrigerator clicks, pipes rattling, the hum of the heater. At 8:14, the front door opened. I heard her voice first. Soft. Delighted. You always forget your key, she whispered. Then his voice, Alex's. That's because you always leave the door unlocked. They laughed. The kind of laugh you only give someone who knows your body. I heard the rustle of coats. The zipper of his jeans. A kiss that wasn't shy. The creak of the bed frame, my bed frame, and then silence broken only by breath and the slow moan of betrayal made flesh. I waited until it was over. Waited until I heard them whispering about plans. Tomorrow, she said. He laughed. You're insatiable. No, she said. You're just better. That was the line. That was the gunshot in my chest. I stepped out of the closet, opened the door, and stood in the hallway. Their heads snapped toward me like I'd kicked the wall. He was shirtless. She was glowing. No shame. Just surprise. My brother stood up first, instinctively. I almost smiled. He still thought this was salvageable. He still thought I was the same man who watched their glances and said nothing. The same man who carried bags while she carried lies. Cam, he started. Sit, I said. He didn't. So I took a photo. One click. Flash on. He flinched like I'd hit him. I turned to her. I want you to see what you look like when you think no one's watching. She pulled the sheet up to her collarbone like modesty could rewind anything. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. You're not going to say anything? She finally asked, voice breaking. No. You are, I said. In about 2 hours, in front of your parents. And mine. And his ex. And yours. And a few other people I thought should know. She blinked. I nodded toward the hallway. I left a note on the table. Told them to come by at 10. Said you had something important to show them. You're lying, she whispered. I stepped aside. Go look. She hesitated, wrapped herself in a robe, padded down the hall. He followed her. I stayed behind. I didn't need to see their faces. I'd already memorized their expressions, his guilt trying to reshape itself into charisma, her fear trying to disguise itself as anger. They came back 2 minutes later. She was pale. You invited our families, she hissed. No, I said. I invited mine. And his. And the ones you betrayed. They deserve front row seats. Alex ran a hand through his hair. This is insane, Cam. You're acting crazy. I'm not acting. He looked around like he wanted to bolt. I'm leaving. Go ahead, I said. But I'll show them anyway. I've got footage, messages, timestamps, receipts. I've got emails from her account. Did you know she never changed her password? And you moron, you texted me once from her phone. Forgot to switch back. I have that too. She sank onto the bed. Alex didn't move. I didn't want this, he said. I tilted my head. You didn't want what? The woman? The betrayal? The chance to crawl into something that belonged to me your whole life. It just happened, he said. I laughed. That broke her. Don't do this, Cam. Please. We made a mistake. You made a choice, I said. 100 times. In my house. In my bed. While I paid the bills and ironed your shirts and thought you were tired because you were working so hard. She cried. Loud now. Theatrical. I walked to the window and watched the streetlight flicker. 10 minutes, I said. You should clean up. Neither of them moved. Okay, I said. I'll do it. I opened the bedroom door and stepped into the hallway. The house suddenly smelled wrong. Too warm, too used. The air was tainted with them. I went to the front door. Guests began to arrive. Her mother first, then mine, then his ex, then his boss. Yes, I invited him too. One by one they stepped inside, confused, quiet. I offered drinks. They accepted out of instinct. I waited until they were all seated in the living room. Then I pressed play. The screen lit up. A video. Grainy footage from the guest room closet. Time-stamped. Dated. Unmistakable. Her voice. His hands. Their betrayal. There were gasps. His mother covered her mouth. Her father stood up. My mother didn't cry. She just looked at me and nodded. When the video ended, I turned to the room. She told me I wasn't enough, I said. He told me he loved me like a brother. No one spoke. I just wanted you all to know what that really means. She was sobbing upstairs. Alex had locked himself in the bathroom. No one stopped me when I walked out. I drove to a hotel I'd already booked under a new name. Slept like a corpse. Woke up to 38 missed calls and 2 voicemails. Didn't listen to either. The next morning, I emailed the video to her gallery partners, his gym clients, and every mutual friend we had. No caption, just the file. By the end of the week, he lost 3 clients. She lost her show. Her father stopped taking her calls. I didn't smile. I didn't celebrate. I just packed. I boxed up every object in that house that once meant something. Photo albums, concert stubs, souvenirs from places we swore we'd go back to. And I burned them. In a metal drum. In the backyard. Middle of the night. The fire was quiet. Controlled. Like me. The last thing I threw in was a note. It said, "You two deserve each other." And nothing else. Subscribe to hear more stories.